Hi, it's Alistair at Electric Scotland. Just adjusting this new camera to see that it's working okay. Hopefully it is, and hopefully the sound's okay, but we'll see. Okay, I just wanted to talk about the Scottish Nationalist Party, because it would seem that at last there is a weakening of support for them, and I think it's about time. I'm seeing a lot of reports coming on these days that are anti-SNP basically, and also a lot of reports showing how they've been trying to hide all kinds of things, and that's apparently bursting open now. For example, I did a video earlier today where I was talking about the Alex Salmond trial and how his evidence was decided that they wouldn't print his evidence. And the committee then, they went to the judge. The judge says she had no problem in it being printed, providing it followed the basic rules of not revealing the witnesses' names. But despite that, the committee still voted against it. Basically, it was the SNP and an independent who supports SNP. They got a one majority, so that's how it went through, basically. However, I have just read that in fact it was hiked to the Scottish Parliament for a final decision, and they have decided that it should be printed. So brilliant news that. And likewise, I also talked about the fact that this international education report has come out on Scotland, and the draft report's already in the government hands, but they announced that there's still work to be done on it, and that it wouldn't actually be produced until June this year, which is of course after the elections. But I noticed again the Scottish Parliament has instructed that it will be produced before the Scottish elections. So that's two major hits against the SNP for trying to hide things, basically. So I'm delighted with that. I'm also starting to see a lot more articles coming out from various sources that are basically saying that the SNP really are not fit for government anymore. And I think Sturgeon's taken a big hit. For example, she wants to fly European Union flags over all government buildings. And of course, we're now officially out of the EU, so why on earth does she want to do that? And it's been pretty well claimed that her idea of independence and rejoining the EU is just, it's just ridiculous. You'd have to take up the euro, for example, and that would be a disaster. We're seeing the EU is unwrapping itself, all the time. In fact, I've taken to reading the Express partly because it's still completely free to view online, whereas most of the Scottish press, not all, but most, are now behind a paywall, mostly. DC Thomson, for example, all of their titles are now behind a paywall. Can't read anything on it, apart from a headline, but the story itself, they won't let you see even a few of them. The Scotsman allow you to read 5 articles a week. Daily Record's completely free, which is good, and I'm getting more from them. But I think the whole problem about Scottish independence is that, people have a right. If they want to be independent and they vote for independence, they should be independent. But the trouble is, who runs an independent Scotland? Not one of the devolved administrations since Scotland got devolution has been competent. They've no ambition for Scotland. The Labour, first of all, ran it. They were shown to be corrupt and incompetent. Then they went with the Liberals, joined up with the Liberals, got the Lib Dems, in other words, and they were incompetent and got thrown out eventually. And the SNP then got a minority government. And since that minority government, they've been in... they're currently technically in a minority government, but unfortunately the Greens are pro-independence and pro-SNP, so they always back the SNP. So they're really they've got a majority anyway. So, in fact, the only party in Scotland that hasn't actually tried to run Scotland is the Conservative Party. And I certainly think we should at least try them once anyway and see whether they can do any better. Although I'm not that keen on any of the Scottish parliaments or parties to do very well in Scotland. But I think we should at least give the Conservatives a go at least once. And if they don't succeed, then I think we can say that Scotland's ungovernable and we'd be far better off in Britain. Anyway, that's my kind of take. But certainly it's great news that things are starting to open up in Scotland, because the Scottish National Party have been hiding all kinds of things from the Scottish people, and that was never the intention. The idea was that Scotland should be a great country and be able to develop and prosper and do well. But it's so riven over this independence proposal. And frankly, I think Alex Salmond at the beginning, with his first minority government, proved he could run Scotland quite well. And I think that encouraged people to vote for the SNP in the following elections. But the current government under Nicola Sturgeon is so wide of the mark on almost everything. I mean, the SNP always have great plans, but their implementation is just terrible. And the thing is, the more they get attacked, the more they dig in and try to push things through, regardless of flaws and just bad legislation. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, because at long last, as I say, the SNP are coming under real pressure. And apparently the very last poll has shown for the first time a decline in support for independence and a decline in support for the SNP. So that's great news, in my opinion, anyway. I think at the end of the day, when people are, I mean, the government's autocratic. It won't listen to anyone. It tries to hide its problems. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon is a past master making everything seem better than it is. You know, she's a good spin artist, brilliant spin artist. But she's clearly a liar. Her and her husband run the SNP. It's an autocratic organisation. I mean, in the old days, it would be like communism. You do it, it was good for the state, to hell. Individuals don't matter in the state. And that's what Nicola Sturgeon has been showing more and more and more. It's what she thinks that matters, not what people think. So I'm delighted that things are moving on. The other thing I wanted to talk about, of course, was where I'm going with the site. Obviously, I've hit my 70 years now, so I've decided I'm going to slow down a wee bit. So I'm not publishing quite as much as I once did. Although, if you remember, in the old days, I used to take a book and scan it in chapter by chapter. So it could take me a good week to get a whole book up. But now I'm publishing more PDFs. That's probably because my eyesight's not so good as it used to be. So I'm actually publishing whole books. So you're actually getting more in the last couple of years, since I fixed my eye problems, than you actually had before. But they're actually full PDF books. But anyway, I think also in the world, there's a lot of problems going on with the EU. As I say, it's just falling apart. We're getting predictions that the next elections in Italy will bring in a new prime minister for them that will actually be anti-EU. I'm hearing there's a lot of problems in Spain, and also serious problems in France. Macron is coming under extreme pressure as being totally incompetent. And there's a good chance Marine Le Pen, the right wing, may actually have a chance of defeating him in the next election. But we'll have to see, of course. But if she did win, she's definitely having a referendum to come out of the EU. We know the Danes, we think in the next few years, will probably have a referendum as well. And Ireland, of course, is being massively hit because of the EU points of view. The EU just don't give a damn about Ireland. They're proving it all the time. And they're obviously trying to hit Britain hard. But so to come back. And so basically I'm seeing all kinds of splits in the EU. I mean, even Germany, a lot of Germans are against the EU now. So Angela Merkel's his last wee period in power is having a horrendous time. And of course the EU are now doing trade deals with China, which is because the anti-US, but there again we're starting to see Biden maybe softening his tone to China. I don't know where that's going to go in America, but we'll just have to see what happens. So, you know, the world's in a very interesting place at the moment. So both in the UK and around the world, and Canada's having issues as well, because getting the vaccine's been very poor. And Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, is under extreme pressure on that side as being incompetent, essentially. So I don't think there's any country in the world that seems to be that happy with itself at the moment. So we'll see how things develop anyway. I think the other bit of the news was that Britain's been doing a lot of new trade deals in the world, and they've just done a formal application to the Pacific Partnership because you know, you've heard of the CANZ UK, the 4 countries, which is Britain, but also Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Well, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are already members of the Pacific Partnership. So it's quite likely that Britain will join, because apparently America is not very keen on that, or at least Biden isn't very keen on it. So we don't quite know where America stands on a lot of the big political things that are going on today. I mean, on one hand, you see that they're ready to do a free trade deal with the UK. Then the next report is that we're last in the bucket list of things to look at. You basically don't know who the heck to trust, to be honest with you. And as I say, the press are ongoing, because it's very difficult to find good press coverage that is genuinely independent. I still like CapEx. I have a great deal of credibility for CapEx. I'm also quite good on Jeff Taylor's blog on YouTube. He posts literally every day, around about between 8 and 12 minutes per blog post. As I say, I'm reading more of the express.co.uk because they're producing more news about the SNP and about Brexit and the trade deals than any other paper I know. Also, the Financial Times, for example, put a big head saying Amsterdam's taken over from London. Well, of course, if you look at the Jeff Taylor blog, he explains that maybe they've gained 50 million, which is tiny because it's literally in the trillions the City of London's doing. So that was a missed story. Again, the Times are, you know, they're biased. The reporters are biased, but their own little agendas are out. So it's quite difficult to find decent reporters. I always said Kevin Haig of the Chocker blog, when he does put a report on Scotland's finances, I usually trust that report because I think I've read each of his reports on the JERS, and on the whole, they're very, very good. So I'm also picking where I go to pick up my news these days. But as I say, I noticed that Texas is under a lot of problems in the States at the moment, under the power shortages, and which kind of shows the planning of the governor of the state has been poor, his implementation even poorer, and that's why there's so many power cuts there, because of his bad planning and organization. So the states have a lot of problems as well. And as I say, there's potential problems with China, Russia. I mean, everywhere is a problem. We've probably never been in such a bad state in the world for quite a while. But you know, we can all come through it. And I'm certainly very hopeful for the UK, because I think we're going to get through this Brexit crisis. We're already doing great deals on world trade. So, you know, I think we could come out of this very powerfully, actually, but we'll see what transpires. Anyway, that was just to kind of bring you up to date a little bit with some of the breaking news that's coming through. I say I have no problems in Scotland going independent if they want to go independent. I've always said that, however, that the major problem I have is with the actual SNP. I just don't trust them. And I think they're incompetent, to be honest with you. And I think if they had a much better government, they might actually have got independence by now. But I think most people now realise the SNP is pretty incompetent. And there's no real vision for Scotland at all. So, you know, that's the way things go. So anyway, there you go. That was just a wee update to bring things up to date for you. Hope you enjoyed this. And as I say, I'll do another one sometime soon. Thanks for listening.